Hello and welcome back to the Paddock. We are back at it again with another episode. Now, when we planned our season 3 episodes and slotted an episode in about the role of a second driver between the Chinese Grand Prix and the Japanese Grand Prix, we didn't know. Consider that my public service announcement. We didn't know. I promise you, as the witchy one of PGP, this was not at all what we expected, planned, any of it. I promise this was not the goal, people. On this episode, you have myself, Amy, Ito, and Hanna, so strap in, y'all, because we have opinions on this. I am going to kick us off with just some ground rules, shall we say, of what a number 2 second driver actually means. Now, often you hear that a number 1 driver is given the pick of the best strategy, the optimum lap for a pit stop, or even sometimes a slightly better tire allocation. The opposite is the case for a second driver. You inherently get a less than ideal strategy, less than ideal pit situations, tires, the whole shebang. You are then also expected to support your teammate who is getting the better hand in the situation on top of all of that. And support by way of holding up opposing teams if you're in a position to do so. Think holding up another driver so that your teammate out front can build a larger gap, what have you. Now, we are going to dive into some of what we consider the top famous number 2 driver situations and the impacts that they had. We did have to keep this a little brief because there are a lot of options to pick from, people. So if we did not pick your preferred pairing of second driver options who you think are iconic, please don't come for us. There's only so much time that we have.
Like she said, we could probably ramble on this in 3 to 4 episodes, just the amount of driver possibilities that you could come up with this in any given scenario. But one of the most famous ones that I would like to talk about is the Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes, or like what I would like to call the Hamilton era. So Valtteri Bottas's tenure at Mercedes was from 2017 to 2021 alongside Lewis Hamilton, is one of the clearest examples of a second driver dynamic in Formula One. While Bottas was quick and capable, he was never truly considered an equal to Hamilton within the team. His role was primarily to support Hamilton's championship ambitions while securing crucial points for Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship only. Now, the initial promise. In 2017 through 2018, Bottas replaced Nico Rosberg in 2017 after a later shock retirement that nobody expected. While he won races and secured poles, he was never a serious championship contender against Hamilton. By 2018, his role became more evident as he played the team game, famously giving up a win in Russia for Hamilton's title push. Now, the wingman era, if you know, you know, which was primarily through 2019 and 2020. Toto Wolff's infamous wingman comment in 2018 was an unintentional, as it is, but it was an accurate label for Bottas. Despite moments of brilliance, notably Bottas 2.0 at the start of 2019, Hamilton consistently had the upper hand. Mercedes never officially labeled Bottas as a number 2 driver to the media, but his race strategies and team orders often prioritized Hamilton over Bottas. The final season and what evidently became the exit, 2021, with George Russell looming, Bottas' role as a support driver became even clearer. His inconsistency and inability to challenge Verstappen and Red Bull hurt Mercedes' championship fight. He was later on replaced by Russell for 2022, marking the end of his Mercedes career. How history will remember Bottas at the Mercedes, one of the strongest second drivers in F1 history, ensuring Mercedes' domination in the Constructor Championship throughout those given years, the key to Hamilton titles, or like what we all would love to give him credit for, especially in seasons like 2018 and 2020, where he helped take points off rivals to give Hamilton more points in the team points. Never quite reached Rosberg's level of challenging Hamilton consistently, but remained a loyal and valuable asset to the team. We'll forever cherish that time of the year and the era.
Now, we can't do this episode and not talk about Red Bull, and you're going to hear me talk about Red Bull more than once. I am currently still the Red Bull girl, so it's kind of unavoidable for me. I have to talk about the Checo Pérez situation first, because it's the situation that everybody thinks about right now when you think of like a second driver scenario. It's definitely what happened to Checo. Now, he rolled in to Red Bull in 2021, replacing Alex Albon, and was tasked with providing stronger support to Max in the title fight. And we saw him have some early adaptation struggles. Despite having race-winning experience, he did struggle to adapt to the high rake RB16B. Red Bull is notorious for having hard cars. It wasn't really surprising for anybody, but we still saw it happen. He did play a key contribution in Max's title defense. He defended against Lewis in Abu Dhabi 2021. While people have really strong opinions on Abu 21, you have to give Checo some credit where credit is due. He did play a crucial role in Max's first championship. We also saw him have a victory in Baku where he secured his first Red Bull win after Max had a tire failure. Yes, that was to Max's downfall, but it was still a win for him. Now, moving into 2022 and 2023, the expectations for growth from him were really high, and we saw success from him in early 22, where he started strong. He had wins in Monaco and Singapore, and he earned the nickname of King of the Streets. That 22 to 23 timeframe, more for me personally, I will say the 2021 to 2022, midway of 23 was like what I would call like peak Minister of Defense mode. Like that was just like when that nickname really fit him. But we did see mid-season performance drops from him. Despite his early momentum, he struggled with the car's development that was favoring Max's driving style. Y'all, the flashbacks were so real. It was just so much deja vu with the car. Red Bull needs to kind of figure out how to make a car that doesn't show discrepancies with your drivers so strongly, but that's a whole different story. He did play a really good supporting role and finished P3 in the championship, and really couldn't challenge Max's dominance. He did attempt a title challenge in 2023. He started the season really strongly with 2 early wins, but soon he just fell behind Max with performance. And then we roll into the rest of 2023 and 2024, where there was just challenge after challenge after challenge, and a lot of uncertainty surrounding Checo. He was super inconsistent and had a ton of qualifying struggles. He frequently failed to reach Q3, was putting himself in the back foot in a lot of races, and let's be really honest, guys, the inconsistencies were really bad. They were really apparent, and they were kind of just in your face. The red flags were out for sure. There was so much pressure from Red Bull for Checo, and there was a lot of replacements that were tossed around. He was under a lot of scrutiny from the team. We had speculations about whether or not he was going to be replaced by another driver, a younger driver. Danny Rick was thrown out there, Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson. Like, there were just so many names that were thrown out into the mix. He did maintain his P2 stance for 2023. Despite his struggles, he secured second place in the championship, marking Red Bull's first ever 1-2 finish in drivers' standings. But the real kicker for me was the fact that the following season, he finished 8th last year. Going from 2nd to 8th is crazy within a year when your teammate is consistently finishing 1st. Or close to. Like, it's just really, that's dramatic, and you can't tell me otherwise. It kind of single-handedly lost Red Bull their Constructors' Championship. Sorry, Checo, but it's the truth.
Amen to all of that. But let's move on from some, dare I say, more traditional second driver, first driver pairings to the spicy ones. Because the one I'm going to talk about right now, Alonso versus Hamilton at McLaren in 2007, was spicy. And even though it was very brief, it couldn't have been longer because they would have killed each other, it feels like. So let's set the scene. As a rookie, Hamilton was paired with double world champion Fernando Alonso. That in itself, you'd think Alonso was the clear number one, but far from it. Especially because Fernando joined McLaren after winning consecutive titles at Renault. What began with mutual respect quickly deteriorated into open hostility as Hamilton immediately performed at Alonso's level. I mean, for example, he won his first race after only having raced 6 times in Formula 1. And that just meant challenge after challenge to the Spaniard, who came into the team thinking he would be the leader. And their relationship reached a breaking point at the Hungarian GP in qualifying when Fernando deliberately blocked Hamilton in the pit lane, preventing him from setting a final qualifying lap, which resulted in Fernando actually being penalized by the FIA, and it also caused McLaren to be investigated. Then we also have some more spice because we have Spygate. Now, for the uninitiated, we also have a longer episode on this, but Cliff Notes version basically involved Ferrari's technical director, and that shared Ferrari's info with McLaren, and so they built a very similar car. Now, with that info out there, or that situation going on, the atmosphere was even more intense, and Alonso allegedly threatened to reveal incriminating information to the FIA if he wasn't given preferential treatment because he just wants to be number one. Now, as I said, the season was spicy, but the fallout was even, dare I say, worse, because both drivers missed the championship by a single point. And that single point advantage helped Kimi Räikkönen at Ferrari to take the title, which actually was the last time Ferrari took the title. On top of that, McLaren was disqualified due to Spygate from the Constructors' Championship and fined $100 million. And of course, then there's the inter-team stuff, because Fernando's relationship with team principal Ron Dennis became irreparable, leading to his return to Renault after just one season, despite him having a multi-year deal. In terms of Hamilton, the rivalry showcased Hamilton's extraordinary talent and mental strength as a rookie even, while revealing Alonso's difficulty in handling an equal teammate, dare I say. Their brief but intense competition set the stage for a long-term rivalry. I think they're not over it, but still, in the subsequent years, even though they were driving for different teams, They went head to head on track, no matter what. And dare I say, it can serve as a cautionary tale of how quickly team harmony can collapse when two elite drivers vie for supremacy within the same garage.
Now, surprise, surprise, I'm back at it again with Red Bull. And of course, I have to talk about everyone's favorite ray of sunshine, Daniel Ricciardo. The man was a second driver to two different drivers on the same team. So that's something that I think is really interesting to think about, because you're within the same team and you're still the second driver to two very different, albeit similar, first drivers. We start off in 2014 with Danny replacing Mark Webber and stepping up from Toro Rosso to partner Seb, who was at that point a 4-time world champ. And shockingly, he was outperforming Seb. Despite being a second driver on paper, he was out qualifying and outscoring Seb and finished third in the championship standings, which was crazy. He had 3 race wins. He had Canada, Hungary, and Belgium, and was the only driver outside of Mercedes to win that entire season, which was crazy. But we had some shifts in 2015 and 2016 when there was transition, because Red Bull was just struggling. They had an underpowered Renault engine, and Danny failed to win a race, though he still remained technically the team leader over his new teammate, Daniel Kvyat. And then in 2016, we saw midway through that season, Red Bull was Red Bull, and surprising to nobody, they swapped their drivers and replaced Daniel Kvyat with Max Verstappen, which very much so shifted the team dynamics. And then there was that battle with Max. Pretty much from the minute Max joined the team, Danny remained consistent and secured a win in Malaysia, but Max just had so much raw speed that it made him such a rising threat to Danny. We had Monaco 2016 and all of that controversy. They lost a near certain victory due to a Red Bull pit stop error, and it just fueled all of the frustrations within the team. Come 2017 and 2018, the shift was just so set that Max was the driver, despite the fact that Danny outscored him and was consistent in podiums in 2017 and consistent in podiums in 2017. Max still was just on the rise in the championship, taking a win in Baku and finishing ahead in the points. We had the teams clashing. There was just rising frustrations. It was apparent to anybody with eyes, if I'm being really frank, people. Max was just gaining more internal support at Red Bull. He was kind of being deemed their future leader, and it was just leading to growing tension. And everybody knows exactly what I'm going to say when I talk about 2018, and that is Baku. Oh my God, Baku 2018 still hurts to watch. Oh my God, Baku 2018 still hurts to watch. People, it was probably the peak of their very heated battle between the two of them that ended in just chaos when they collided, and it was just a dumpster fire from here on out. And everybody knows how Max and Danny ended, with Danny leaving. It's just really hard to be a second driver to a driver with so much power and natural strength, which, like, it's not to Danny's discredit by any means. It's just a hard role to be in.
I think it's hard because we're not going to really touch on it on this episode. I believe we have a past episode where we do touch on it, which is kind of like the curses. I want to say that this year, 2018, was the start of the Red Bull curse of the second driver's seat, or at least that is what I'm going to say. Now, don't fight me if you have another option. I will not accept other excuses or other answers. Sorry, not sorry. But I think that this really kind of showed that no matter how long you could be with the team, no how good you could be with the team, when a team sets its thoughts or ideas on this new job or this new driver or this new philosophy of, we're gonna maintain this driver, we're gonna coach him from 17 to be a 4-time world champion per se, it shows that they kind of put everybody else as that second driver as only to support that person in their desires and their goals, and not a team atmosphere fight for the win as you want. And that is the whole purpose of this whole episode, is just to highlight how divided sometimes these drivers and these teams can be. And that is just how much Formula One kind of is.
I, for the most part, agree 1000% with what Hanna said, with the exception of when she thinks the Red Bull curse started. I personally think the only person we have to blame for the curse on the second Red Bull seat is Mark Webber. I'm sorry, but he is the culprit. It's the only logical answer that I can personally think of. There's really nobody else but Mark. Multi-21, babe. Like, it's the only logical answer I have for when this curse starts. It's either Mark Webber or it's Daniel Kvyat, because he's the originator. He is the originator of the seat swap.
Okay, I will give you the caveat Danny scenario because there is some logic that can back that. The Mark Webber logic, though, I would need to see the data. Prove it, girl. Prove it. But we can have that offline.
All I'm going to say on this is I'm in Amy's camp with Mark Webber and, by extension, Seb Vettel, because he caused Multi-21. Just saying. But let's move on to another very spicy duo, dare I say. And as listeners probably know by now, and the girls for sure do, I could yap about this duo for hours. So I'm trying to keep this as brief as I can. And that is the era of Mercedes from 2013 to 2016, when Nico Rosberg partnered Lewis Hamilton. There I say, we've thrown around the word intense rivalry a lot this episode, but I feel like this is another one, especially for the aspect that they began as childhood friends. Like, they karted together. Like Keke Rosberg, Nico said, he created a karting team so they could kart together. That's how far back they go. So, when Hamilton joined Mercedes in 2013, which was a shocker in itself, their relationship was initially very friendly, very cordial, and it was a vibe. Let's just put it that way. But the introduction of the Mercedes hybrid power unit in 2014 transformed their dynamic into a very fierce battle, and it marked the start of on-track incidents at Monaco, Spa, Austria, and of course, the dramatic crash of 2016 in Spain. Team principal Toto Wolff even said he was forced to implement stricter team protocols as the psychological warfare between the two drivers intensified. And I mean, on the topic of psychological warfare, dare I say, Nico learned from the best, aka Michael Schumacher. Just saying. Amy, don't look at me like that. Michael Schumacher, if you go back, he was the master. But anyway, It all culminated in 2016 with Nico winning over Lewis. And then, of course, the shocking retirement a few days after he won the title, even though he had just signed a new contract during that season. So, why did he retire? What was the impact? Well, the impact, dare I say, was it mostly elevated Mercedes's profile, and it presented unprecedented management challenges between the two, and it permanently, dare I say, as far as we know, damaged their friendship because they were being pushed by their team, by their individual garages, but also by the team as a whole to perform at these heights that just you couldn't sustain. I mean, on a side note, Nico has talked about this at length, how intense 2016 was for him, and it's a whole thing. But of course, it also provided drama during that time because both were just vying for everything. And as I said, Nico talked about this in the past, and he even admitted to saying the mental toll that it took to compete against Lewis led to his immediate retirement after winning his sole championship. And he even has said in the past that he was tempted to retire even if he didn't win. But of course, what does this mean for Lewis? Because his reputation for speed, for psychological resilience, was just further cemented in the history books. And this whole rivalry situation, these few years, just demonstrated how tough of a sport, especially psychologically, Formula One is, even though it created very memorable moments for us fans.
Now, we have talked about the second drivers of the past. Let's talk about some of the second drivers of the current. What is going on now? And one of the ones that I really am excited to touch on is this whole Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris with McLaren pairing. It is one of the most intriguing team battles on the F1 grid to date. During their time together, they have formed one of the most competitive team pairings, while Norris has been seen as McLaren's lead driver per se, given his experience and speed with the team. Now, Piastri has shown flashes of brilliance, proving he's not just a supporting act, nor to be seen as a second driver. I'm very intrigued to see how 2025 is going to play out with this dynamic pairing. McLaren has so far maintained a balanced approach, avoiding internal favoritism thus far, but the natural dynamic leans towards Norris as the lead driver due to the experience. However, Piastri's ability to match or even beat Norris in qualifying and races on occasion suggests he isn't settling into a permanent second driver role. Now, what could happen? 1, the status quo to be maintained, which is the most likely possibility. Norris continues as team leader, but Piastri remains close, ensuring McLaren has a strong lineup to challenges for podium and potential wins. The team will avoid internal conflict by giving both drivers equal opportunities, similar to how Red Bull handled Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen in 2016 and 2018 a little bit. Now 2, Piastri becomes a true challenger, which is very possible given how he drove at the end of 2024 and how he has started driving at the beginning of 2025. If Piastri significantly closes the gap or even starts beating Norris regularly, it could create tension or a possible switch. Norris, while confident, may feel the pressure if Piastri begins outperforming him, potentially leading to a rivalry we didn't even know could happen, even though they claim to be really good friends. 3, Now, this one is very less likely, but possible given the future. Norris leaves McLaren or Piastri. If McLaren fails to deliver a title-challenging car, Norris might explore options elsewhere, like Red Bull or even Mercedes. They've both expressed interest in him. Piastri would then become the de facto team leader, with McLaren bringing in a second driver to support him, or vice versa. Tables, you never know. But they do both have a multi-year contract. Now, my final thoughts. As of now, McLaren has one of the healthiest driver pairings on the grid, what I think. Piastri is still developing, and Norris remains a clear frontman. However, as we've seen in F1 before, Hamilton versus Alonso, Vettel versus Leclerc, dynamics can shift rapidly. If Piastri keeps improving, McLaren may soon have two top-tier drivers fighting for supremacy within the team. If tensions arise, we could see a situation like Alonso versus Hamilton in 2007, or, like I mentioned, Vettel versus Leclerc in 2019.
I definitely think we are starting to see Oscar come into his confidence a bit more and like really own his potential. I'm super, super, super interested to see how this season goes for him. We've already seen his first win of the year. I mean, the man has Mark Webber as a manager, and with Mark's own experience as a second driver, because like, let's be honest, Mark has some trauma from those old Red Bull days, I'm sure. I could really see Mark influencing how Oscar pushes back, and even like when Oscar pushes back with the team on team orders and things of that nature. Either way, I really do think that Oscar and Lando click, and they're probably, for me, the best of the current grid in terms of pairings that just click really well. And for right now, they are locked in for the future, especially with Oscar's contract extension that like just hit.
Agreed. But may I remind everyone, contracts can be broken. But still, I don't see that driver pairing going sour, dare I say, unless they have a phenomenal car and Oscar just gets this hunger. But then again, it's Oscar. So, and he's a hard one to read. So, who knows? But another driver pairing that I think is one to watch is George and Kimi. So, Cliff Notes. In 2025, Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, Jesus, now I know why Lewis can never remember that name, introduced new driver lineup featuring George Russell and 18-year-old rookie Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Russell, now the senior driver, expressed enthusiasm about partnering with Antonelli, acknowledging the young Italian driver's impressive speed and talent. I mean, hello? He skipped Formula 3, jumped from Formula 4 into Formula 2 at the behest of Mercedes, and then basically had the Formula 1 seat by the time Monza rolled around last year. So, George anticipates, according to some interviews, that Antonelli will keep me on my toes, direct quote, and is eager for the new challenge that the partnership will bring. Dare I say, that sounds awfully optimistic, George. I almost see this going south real quick, especially with how Kimi has been performing, and depending on how the season goes, if he keeps being consistent, George might feel threatened, dare I say. But Toto, on another note, Toto highlighted the combination of their experiences and also highlighted Kimi's, Jesus, me using the government name, raw speed, and the balance that promising team dynamic creates. He also emphasized the team's commitment to nurturing homegrown talent, noting that both drivers have progressed through Mercedes' junior program. And dare I say, after 2013 to 2016, they're very on top of keeping everyone's tempers from flaring as much as they possibly can, dare I say. And in that whole scheme of things, George also emphasized the importance of collaboration, stating that Kimi has an equal voice in the development of the team's Formula One car. This approach underscores a mutual respect in the shared goal to advance the team's performance, which I get, and we've seen it in the past with that team. But again, what if all of a sudden they have a powerhouse car? Because we all know what happens then. And even Kimi's nice words and his excitement about joining the team and partnering George and viewing him as a role model, etc., could again vanish in a heartbeat.
The only thing I'm going to say to that is George might feel threatened. Might? This is George. This is the man who has the nickname of Princess George. Well, technically Princess Georgie. I'm sorry, George. I should get your nickname correct. The answer to that is definitely will feel threatened. I will say, Kimi Antonelli has made me eat my words in 2 races. I did not see that coming. I mean, it's 2 races, so like he could still not do as great as I'm expect. Like my prediction could be accurate, but he might just be like proving me wrong from the jump, which like, hey, I'll take it. But like currently he has me eating my words. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm going to be very short and sweet with this. We stand for Kimi here. And the rumors of Toto potentially wanting to adopt Kimi is definitely not helping George's case as far as like the feeling threatened. Because prior to Kimi being with the team the last year with Lewis and George, there was definitely rumors that Toto favored George or Princess Georgie. And there's no denying that there's something going on in the House of Commons here. And you just don't necessarily understand what flavor, what side you're gonna get when it comes to this team. And kind of going back just based on what Ito said, if they do very, very well this year, could we see a shakeup when it comes to Lewis Hamilton and feeling like he made that mistake? When in actuality, he's where he wants to be at Ferrari. He did say he wanted to finish his career in red. It also makes you wonder, was this twist and turn of events the ultimate play that will either be a hurt or a gain?
I feel like we have so many driver pairings on the grid that like I'm so excited to keep an eye on what their dynamics morph into or how they continue to develop. In like the case of Lando and Oscar, I'm just so excited to see how that develops because they've already been paired together for a while. But everybody else, it's all pretty much new pairings when you think about it. So I'm really excited to see how things shake out for so many of the different teams. For me, I have one real pairing that I'm super keeping a close eye on, and for me, that is Pierre and Jack. I love them both separately, but like together, they're actually adorable. They seem to get along really, really well, which just warms my heart because everybody knows that Pierre and Esty did not get along last year. And so it's nice to just like see Pierre like genuinely happy with his teammate. Obviously, there's a ton of rumors surrounding Jack and his time in F1, but like I'm super excited to see how that pairing evolves. If I have to pick one other team that I'm interested to see what the dynamic becomes, it's the Steak Boys of Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. I'm just very interested to see how that goes because we've never seen Nico with a rookie before. I've only ever really seen him with Kevin. So I'm just very interested to see if we get like a different side to Nico having a rookie for a teammate.
Amen. I mean, I can also recall him being with Danny Rick at Renault, but he's, as you said, he's had more seasoned driver teammates. So it's going to be interesting. I feel like already in their social media stuff, it's become very older brother, younger brother dynamic, if not dad and son dynamic. But to your point on Pierre and Jack, all I'm going to say is, on this duo, Flo is involved. That's all I'm going to say.
Now, we have ultimately saved probably the best for last. Or at least, if you've made it thus far, buckle in, get ready. So, I'm going to touch briefly on the Max and Liam era. Now, the brief and chaotic 2025 pairing of Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson at Red Bull was a move that shocked many, but ultimately ended in just 2 races, before Lawson was then demoted, that's such a bad word, back to Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, or what we like to call VCARB, in favor of Yuki Tsunoda. While short-lived, this stint raised many questions. Was Lawson even given a fair shot? Was Red Bull's decision purely performance-based, or was there more to the story that we're not led to believe? Why didn't we do this at the beginning? Why is it only 2 races in? I guess the answers will never be given. Now, the Liam versus Yuki situation. The Liam Lawson versus Yuki Tsunoda situation took a dramatic twist at the start of the 2025 F1 season, with Lawson being briefly promoted to Red Bull for the first 2 races, only to be demoted back, like I mentioned, to VCARB as the team reshuffled its lineup yet again. Now, with Tsunoda stepping up to the Red Bull racing seat, the question is this a masterclass move or a disaster waiting to happen? Lawson's demotion is a brutal reminder of how Red Bull operates. Despite its strong past performances, the 2 races weren't enough for the team to commit to him fully. However, staying in VCARB at least keeps him in the system rather than being dropped entirely. Oh, we saw that last year with Danny. At least this wasn't as brutal. Could Tsunoda to Red Bull be a success? Why it might work. Improve consistency. Tsunoda has matured since his early start in his F1 career. Now, while erratic, is now a dependable points finisher. Potential to push Verstappen. While not expected to challenge Max outright, Tsunoda could offer more support than Pérez has in recent seasons. Honda relationship. With the looming Aston Martin switch in 2026, this could be a last-ditch effort to keep Honda closer to Red Bull's project. Now, why it might backfire. Tsunoda crumbles under pressure. Red Bull's A-team is ruthless, and if Yuki struggles against Verstappen, the team won't hesitate to replace him or bring Lawson back up. And if Lawson proves himself in V-Carb and dominates in the sister team while Yuki struggles in Red Bull, the team may have made the wrong bet. Do we think that might happen? I don't know. Now, short-term thinking, the move seems reactionary rather than a part-term plan. If it fails, Red Bull may be back in a second driver crisis. What are they going to do? Bring a 17-year-old? Bring a reserve driver? Who knows? Now, what is next for Lawson? If Tsunoda struggles, Lawson is, of course, like we mentioned, next in line. This could be a temporary setback before a full-time Red Bull seat. Could we see the switch yet again? If Tsunoda thrives, Lawson maybe need to look elsewhere. Potential waiting until 2026 when Aston Martin's driver market shifts with Honda. The worst case scenario, if V-Car fails to provide a competitive car and Red Bull moves on, Lawson is at risk for being another victim of the Red Bull driver program churn. We all know how that went. This is a huge gamble, and if Tsunoda delivers, Red Bull looks like a genius. But if he falters, they may have wasted their best shot at developing Lawson into a future title contender. Now, this is a lot of what ifs, but all of these thoughts and processes are very, very accurate and just lead to how chaotic this season could be for Red Bull.
Honestly, yes, I'm about to be heavily critical of Red Bull. Yes, have they been my team since 2011? Absolutely. I blame Sebastian Vettel and turn Daniel Ricciardo for really cementing that fandom. But yes, I am about to be overly critical of my own team. I'm very capable of doing that, I promise you people. This entire situation has been a shit show from the start. I feel like I've heard so many theories online from that this situation was always supposed to happen, to people saying that it just happened because Liam isn't that good. Guys, it's been 2 races. 2 races. You cannot tell me that Liam was that bad in 2 races on tracks that I'm pretty sure he's never driven before in an F1 car. I think the big risk of it is what happens if Yuki isn't any better. Like, what the heck do you do next? Because if that happens, I think you're going to have a really, really, really hard time convincing any fan that it's a driver issue and not a car issue. Because, like, at this point, I'm really starting to feel like it's more of the car is the problem, and the fact that the car is built so much, too much, to max, that it's you're harming your second driver because Max has such a specific driving style. So I really wonder what the hell they're going to do if Yuki is not any better. Like, what are you going to do? Switch them back? Bring in somebody else? Like, something has to give. And then they just haven't figured it out yet. And then there's, like, the optics of it all. Optics-wise, it just really cements them as, like, the cutthroat, gives no F's team. Which, like, if that's what you want to be, cool, fine. Go for it. But, like, then you have the other flip side of what happens if Liam starts to perform in the V-Carb? Because the V-Carb honestly looks like it's got some pace. Like, what happens then? Like, you can't say that it was Liam being bad if he's then performing in the V-Carb. Like, there's so much potential for chaos. Now, we also now have, like, another new driver dynamic to think about, because, like, now there's the combination of, like, Yuki and Max, which I think personally there's a really high likelihood of battling and bickering at minimum with those two. I don't know how well Yuki is going to do actually being a second driver and having to defend for somebody else and not just like go. I am very interested to see how that shakes out, because then we have what I think is actually the more interesting pairing to keep an eye on for the Red Bull driver pairings of Liam and Isaac, because you more or less have two rookies on a team together. And we all remember what happened when Haas had that and did that, because it did not go well for them. Like, yes, Liam may technically not be considered a rookie to a lot of people because he did have half-ish of a season last year. So, like, yeah, he's not fully a rookie, but, like, he's damn near close to one. So, like, what's going to happen with two rookies on a team? I'm just so interested to see the Red Bull of it all just go down.
To be honest, I totally forgot that now VCarb has two rookies on a team. So many thoughts. But, to be honest, you guys covered it pretty well as to what I'm thinking, so I'm not going to repeat what you guys said. But let's just say there is a reason why apparently when Alex Albon got the call over break as to whether he could see himself back in the Red Bull family, he said no. The boy is still traumatized, probably, most likely, or at least he's over it and just wants to protect his peace. I just hope Yuki won't go down that path, because we all know it's already too late for Liam. Also, side note, if Yuki can't deliver, I wonder who they would put in, especially as there's that pesky 4 driver per team per season limit that almost became an issue when Danny Rick broke his hand in 2023. Like, so many questions and so many possibilities that I bet we could yap for another hour.
I mean, when in doubt, bring back Maxwell? Bring back Danny Rick? I don't know. And to close out the episode, we have a moment of the weekend. F1 TV's very own and PGP's favorite, Miss Laura Winter, got engaged over the weekend. Congratulations, Laura, and to her lovely partner, Louis Paul. We are so excited for you guys. Congrats.
Congratulations. And that's a wrap on this episode with Paddock Girls Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of second drivers, especially the ongoing drama surrounding Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen with that seat? What are your predictions for 2025? Don't forget to follow us on socials. Everywhere we are Paddock Girls Podcast, except for Twitter and Blue Sky, where we are Paddock Girls Pod. Follow us for more F1 updates and content there. And be sure to tune in next time as we gear up for the Japanese Grand Prix, one of the most exciting races on the calendar. We will see you on the next lap. Now, before you sign off, if you made it to the end of this episode, make sure to drop a checkered flag emoji on our Japan GP graphic wherever you follow us. Might be silly, but it could be a fun way to kind of get everybody together and talk about this upcoming race. Thank you for joining us in the paddock. See you at the next race. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.